from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right. Welcome, CoCo Cruisers. You are listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast, episode number 56. Yay!
Right.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Awesome work.
Always a good time when we get around to recording our podcast each month. It's an exciting time to get together. It's like our own little version of Tandy Assembly or CoCo Fest or, whatnot. Good little bit of camaraderie that we can have with each other. And thanks to the wonders of modern technology, we can share it with you. Very exciting. I, of course, am John Linville, and I'm joined by Mr. Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, John, and everyone listening.
And, Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, and greetings, CoCo Cruisers.
And, of course, the gentleman planter, Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, very good. So, how's everything going? Time marches on. Well, the agenda says CoCo Fest is 3 months away. It's almost more like 2.5, creeping up on us. People are getting their tables. Hopefully people are thinking about their displays and whatnot. I'm thinking about what we're going to have for dinner. That's one of the best features is getting to have some time with my boys, right? Anyway, so that's coming up. Exciting to think about. Don't forget, in approximately 9 months, we've got Tandy Assembly, another lovely event, one I'm becoming more and more partial to. A quaint little visit to Central Ohio setting. A lot of fun. Good to have our year kind of planned out, starting it's the start of the year. Good to be thinking about how we're going to entertain ourselves with our CoCo habit later in the year. So, what's everyone working on? Who's got something going? Well, I've been took some time, of course, with my time off after the holidays, and been putting together some electronics projects, kits, whatever. I picked up some more unpopulated circuit boards for a Cosmic Elf clone, and also for a clone of the Grant Searle fixed chip 6809. Been burning up the surplus electronics parts places and a little bit on eBay, getting parts for those. Putting them on the boards as they come in. It's been a lot of fun. I love the smell of solder. And then I've also been tinkering a bit with some software projects. Nothing too much to report at this point, but probably going to do some blogging. So not strictly CoCo related, but retro and kind of close. So good stuff around here. How about you guys? You been up to anything, Neil?
I have, actually. I do have a project in the works. I can't really announce it yet because I want it to be a good surprise, but I can promise everybody listening there will be a nice product I'm going to be offering within about a month. So hopefully the next podcast I'll have the official announcement.
Awesome.
Cool.
How about you, Mike? You got anything going?
I don't really have a project right now. I've been spending a lot of time going through, strangely enough, playing with some word processors, but also some obscure code I found out in Color Computer Archive. Interesting utilities out there that I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Fun to play with. One of them is called Key 264, which basically it's you have to have a 1.0 extended BASIC for it to work, but it basically turns your color computer into two color computers. Basically splits your memory and lets you have BASIC in two different banks of 32K.
Wow.
So you can be working on BASIC in one you hit a couple of keys and then you bounce over to the other. It's almost like having a virtual machine. Kind of neat, kind of fun to play with.
That's cool. Schizo CoCo. That's pretty cool. Cool. Yeah, that can be a cool way to do to spend some time with your CoCo, just going through the archives, and doesn't have to be nuclear science and groundbreaking research and whatever. Sometimes just pulling some stuff down and saying, I wonder what this is. That can be a lot of fun and sometimes pretty educational.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Very cool stuff there.
Same with the Rainbow magazines.
Oh,
I
yeah.
find.
Definitely. Speaking of Rainbow magazines, Boise, I know I saw you poking some of the cast here, looking for some spares on your Rainbow Preservation project. How's that going?
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear back. I've got a few more issues outstanding that I need to fill that up, so that hopefully will be wrapped up in a month or so. Get those bound and sent off and donated to the library. And also, I've been working on building Liberate 09 boards.
Oh,
I've got
cool.
some demand. Yep, some demand has come back for that product. I was actually out of built boards, have the raw materials, started building a few. So that's been fun.
Yeah, cool.
See us drive the market for Atari 8-bits. Just so people can put 6809s in them. That's a wise thing to do, I think.
eBay price goes up.
Yep, Liberate Euro 9.
Yeah. I should do a Farfall version for that. That'd be cool.
That'd be cool, yeah.
That would.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then what about eBay or any other acquisitions? Anybody buy anything cool lately?
I got a couple of cool things. Picked up a 1981 Microlabs RAM EEPROM emulator board. It's basically got some static RAMs on it. Got a couple of switches on it. It's a ROM pack, but you can basically store things like you would store for a ROM pack, and then you can flip a switch to either auto boot or clear out your computer, and then flip the switch, auto execute what you wrote into the RAM space. So it's kind of like a prototyping for a ROM.
Yeah. I remember when you bought that, you shared that with us, and it looked pretty cool.
Kind of cool and kind of obscure, especially from 1981. So that was really an early device. They had another version. I think you've got the board for it, don't you, Neil? They had a version that was just that you could plug 4 ROMs into and switch to banks of ROM.
Yeah, that's the one I have. Yeah, it looked familiar when you were posting it, and then
yeah.
It's funny because I've hung on to that for years and I didn't know what it was until you told me.
You could probably turn it into one of these if you wanted to.
Oh, that's cool.
And the other item I picked up, which was kind of cool, is a color burner, Green Mountain Micro color burner.
Oh, cool.
Pretty nice. It's got the original manual, the original cassette, and, of course, the board. So
nice.
It even comes in the original box. So that pretty nice to have in the collection.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Speaking of EEPROM burners, I picked something up on eBay, in fact, for the Liberate 09 project because I had to burn some PLDs. It's called the XGECU Programmer Model TL8662+. It's a Chinese-made EEPROM burner. Uses USB to connect to your PC or your Mac. Works pretty well. I burned some PLDs with it, some 16 V8s for the Liberate 09 project, and a few ROMs. So fairly inexpensive, good little programmer.
Cool.
Nice.
Like I mentioned before, I've been looking through my eBay purchase history, and I've got all these little parts for here and there, random stuff. One thing that may be of interest, we mentioned from time to time the Dick Smith VZ200, also was VZ300, which was is a Z80-based machine. Some call it a TRS-80 clone. I think the ROMs may have some similarities to the TRS-80 Model 1 ROMs, but the video hardware is a 6847, like on the CoCo or the MC10. Runs a BASIC that's pretty similar to Color Basic. It's I always thought it was kind of neat, whatever. They're if you're in Australia, probably not too hard to find. If you're in the United States, they don't show up very often. They do show up once in a while. In fact, every once in a while, there'll be even one that does NTSC video instead of PAL. but more importantly, occasionally you'll get some peripherals. And so I had a couple of peripherals in the last month or so. I had a peripheral, which actually the joystick, which is they kind of have a little weird, like a card edge connector and hardwired joysticks. A little inconvenient, but nice to have if you actually want to play any games on there. And then I picked up a lot of about 24 game tapes. So not exactly a color computer, but it's kind of similar. And if you stand back and look at the screen, you'll swear it's a color computer. Anyway.
Bring that to Tandy Assembly. That'd be perfect.
I ought to. Yeah, I was thinking about.
I'd like to see that.
I have a couple of things. I have some Matra Alice equipment. I have the Dick Smith VZ equipment. Maybe I'll bring some foreign stuff. We'll see. If I can't think of anything better to bring, at least. That'd be cool. Well, is that enough for an introduction? Went a little longer than I think we usually go for an intro, but sounds good so far. Mm-hmm. Why don't we take a little break, and then we'll be back with our announcements.
Look up in the sky!
That's amazing. Wow.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Halley's Comet only appears every 75 years. Don't miss its 1986 arrival. It's the anyone-can-use Halley's Comet Locator. This very friendly software package includes complete day-by-day positions of the comet on 7 high-resolution star charts from November 85 through June 86. Print any position chart and take it outside with you so that you can easily locate Halley's Comet. You also receive the user guide with more than 50 pages. It provides easy instructions for using each star chart, photos of the comet, as well as information about the comet and the night sky. Halley's Comet Locator is available for the color computer and the IBM PC. Just $34.50 plus $2 shipping and handling. Make the most of this once-in-a-lifetime spectacle of nature with Halley's Comet Locator.
Florida residents add 5% sales tax. Canadians add 6%. Other countries add 15%. Halley's Comet Locator is a product of Cellmark, Miami, Florida.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. Now it's time for announcements. You are, of course, listening to the CoCo Crew Podcast. We are reachable through Twitter with a Twitter handle of @CoCo Crew Podcast. That's @CoCoCrewPodcast. If you're prone to sending tweets, or whether you're prone to it or not, if you do it, feel free to tweet at us, and we may tweet back if I check Twitter soon enough to see it. Anyway, would love to hear from you. Tweet us your ideas, your feedback, or your criticisms, whatever. In addition, we are, of course, available on Facebook. We have a Facebook page that is just called the CoCo Crew Podcast. That's 4 separate words. Join the group. We usually try to get our news items out to that podcast group, either only there or get there quicker than some of the more generic groups, just so that we, so there's some reason to join. So we'd love to have you as part of our group. Come join. We are, of course, a podcast, and so we are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Of course, we're also available for streaming through Spotify, on Stitcher, and, of course, through TuneIn. And we have all those links in the show notes. If any of those are the way you prefer to consume content, go check us out. And, of course, for some time, we've been taking our audio podcasts and doing some mechanical conversion on them, turning them into video spots that we share out on YouTube. You check the link in the show notes. We have a link to a YouTube playlist of our various episodes. If you prefer to consume content through YouTube, then we recommend that you check it out. One bonus to consuming the show through YouTube, particularly for those who are not native speakers, YouTube does a pretty good job of adding subtitles to the video playback. So if you enable the subtitles, it may be helpful. If you're not a native English speaker, it may make it a little bit easier to follow the podcast. I can definitely see how that might be helpful. So you might consider checking us out on YouTube. Again, the CoCo Crew Podcast is a member of the Throwback Network. The Throwback Network, of course, is a group of retro-themed podcasts, in this case mostly relating to 80s and 80s culture. Have a lot of retro gaming, retro computing, other podcasts or whatever. Some are related to TV shows and old cartoons, like Saturday morning cartoons and all that sort of stuff. If you are caught up with your CoCo Crew and are looking for other podcast alternatives, then we recommend that you check out the Throwback Network. We are also listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. This, of course, is also a list of retro-themed podcasts, in this case, all centered around retro gaming or retro computing. So, again, if you are caught up with the CoCo Crew and you're looking for other podcast alternatives, then we recommend you check out the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew podcast is hosted by Cyber Ears. If you have a need to host audio content on the internet, we recommend that you check out Cyber Ears, where you will get your audio on your terms. And of course, if you want to reach out via email to talk to either all of our hosts or our individual hosts, we have some email addresses set up for the purpose. First three will reach all of the show hosts. Of course, have show, SHOW, at CoCoCrew.org. That's at CoCoCrew.org. We also have podcast, PODCAST, at CoCoCrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at CoCoCrew.org. Again, each of those addresses will reach all of our hosts, and we'd love to hear from you with suggestions for topics, criticisms, critiques, or praise for the shows. Just want to tell us how much you love us, or tell us about your new hairstyle, or whatever you got to tell us. Also, each host has an individual email address where you can reach us individually. So I, of course, am John, JOHN, at CoCoCrew.org. We also have Neil, NEIL, Mike, MIKE, Boise, BOISY, and, of course, Ron, RON, at CoCoCrew.org. It's been a while since we've had Ron on the show. He's been having some, let's say, family-related issues. And, of course, we miss him and we wish him well, and hope to have him back before too long. Those are our standard announcements. At this point, we like to cover a few events happening in real life that we think our viewers will be interested in. Coming up, March 21st and 22nd, 2020, Vintage Computing Festival, Pacific Northwest. This will be held at the Living Computers Museum and Labs in Seattle, Washington. And again, that's Saturday, March 21st and Sunday, March 22nd. This year, 2020. It'd be a cool event. Old computers. The VCF guys do a good job. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. If you are in or near the Pacific Northwest part of the United States, then we recommend that you find a way to get to VCF Pacific Northwest. April 3rd through 5th of the 2020, we have the Midwest Gaming Classic, which will be held at the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What is it? The Midwest Gaming Classic is a trade show featuring 150,000 plus square feet of retro and modern home video game consoles, pinball machines, arcade video games, tabletop RPGs, computers, tabletop board games, crane games, collectible card games, air hockey, and that's just a start. Sounds like a big event. Looks like a cool event from the pictures. Ron says it's a great event. If you're in or near that part of the country, which is the northern Midwest, I guess. If you're nearby, we recommend that you check that out. Looks like a good time to be had. And again, that is the Midwest Gaming Classic, April 3rd through 5th of 2020. A couple of weeks after that, of course, we have 29th annual last Chicago CoCo Fest. This will be held at the Holiday Inn Elk Grove Village in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, April 18th and 19th of 2020. This has traditionally been the big event for the CoCo community. Had good times over the years. We hope they continue. We are looking forward to it. Some of us already have tables registered. We're going to sponsor some kind of contest, basically something modeled along the lines of Retro Challenge, but it'll be centered on the CoCo or CoCo Fest. So I'm going to come up with a clever name of CoCo Fest Challenge. What do you think? The idea will be that people that want to participate will be able to propose and describe their own projects. Then the expectation will be that as that their projects will run probably, I'm thinking roughly 6 weeks. I'm thinking maybe we'll start just after Valentine's Day, so February 15th, and run through the end of March. So or let's say the last day maybe will be April Fool's Day, so April 1st. So fill in between the holidays. Start just after Valentine's Day so that you keep the sweetie happy. Your Valentine's gift from your sweetie can be to let you play CoCo for 6 weeks and work on your projects. I think it all works out. It sounds perfect. And I'll be posting to Facebook and maybe to the mailing list, anywhere else that seems relevant. And we'll get some details, start to have some people get ready to announce their projects and then post some updates. I think it'll be a lot of fun. After the time has elapsed, we'll have a panel of judges try to pick a winner. The judges will be comprised of the CoCo Crew hosts, so all of us plus Ron. If for some reason we manage to deadlock, of course that's 5 people if you count Ron, but if we somehow manage to deadlock, we're going to throw it to probably, say, Mark Marlette, because he's everyone's good buddy. So I just drafted Mark. He didn't know it. Anyway, we'll figure out a winner, and whoever the winner is, we will invite you to join us on the Friday night before CoCo Fest for our pre-fest dinner. Now, this is a big deal. I know Boise in particular is probably not real excited about bringing a stranger into our dinner group, but he's giving me this consideration as a favor, and I do appreciate it, and I think it'll be a good time. Plus, he gets a say in who the winner is, so don't feel too bad for him. And we'll make some provisions if for some reason you can't be there on Friday night or don't want to go where we're going, or if you want to participate but you just don't want to have dinner with us. We'll figure something out. If you can't come with us, maybe I'll get you a gift certificate somewhere or something like that. Anyway, I'll buy, and in fact, I'll buy for you plus one if you have a guest.
Come hungry.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I mean, we have some good dinners on those nights, those Friday nights. We go to some nice places.
Yeah, we do not skimp on that.
Yeah. And so I'm not cheaping out. We're not going to drag you down to Portillo's. And it's not going to be some ramshackle or whatever. It'll be a nice place. You'll actually have to wear your nice shoes and a shirt with a collar. So anyway, details are subject to change. It's still not quite nailed down. And like I said, I've given myself a couple of weeks now until Valentine's Day before start. But and if for some reason you're not ready on Valentine's Day, you can join afterwards. You can join up until the day before, I guess. But part of the point will be, how well do you document it? Do you post, looking for people to post blog posts documenting progress, or post video updates, or a combination, or just Facebook posts would be fine. But we want to hear from you while your project's going. We'd like to see good information either on the technical aspects of your project, or we'd like to see that, you're actually doing something cool, what you might be learning something, whatever. Anyway, probably could cut that out and do its own segment. But anyway, that's the proposal. I'm excited about it. I hope you're excited about it. This is something we're doing to make CoCo Fest stay exciting and relevant for us, and we hope you'll join us and be part of it. So that is, again, the 29th annual last Chicago CoCo Fest, coming to Elk Grove Village, Illinois, April 18th and 19th of 2020. Be there. Be coming up. If if that's not good enough, the next week, April 24th through 26th of 2020, coming to Wall, New Jersey, we have the Vintage Computer Festival East, being held at the InfoAge Science Center, the historical site. They have some other museums on site and cool stuff. It's a nice group of guys. It's always been pretty easy to work with. They're going to have a keynote speaker on Saturday, Bill Minch. I know this is a CoCo group. If you've ever heard of another CPU besides the 6809, yes, there were some. There's one that's this little-known CPU known as the 6502. Bill Minch was the father of the 6502, and in fact, he's still in charge, as far as I know, still in charge of the company that continues to make them. So he knows a little something about something. Could be a cool keynote. They also have a Sunday keynote from Michael Tomczyk. I know that name, but I'm not really sure the connections. Did you guys know? Anyway, I'm sure it'll be cool to go if you go to VCF East. Forgive me, Michael. I'm sorry. VCF East guys, I'm sorry. I'm just spaced on the name here. It does look familiar, but I don't know who it is. Anyway, do try to get out there. Wall, New Jersey, April 24th and 26th, 2020. Also a 3-day event. So if you get out there, they have a Friday event with classes and workshops. So consider that as part of your plans. Moving up just a little bit of an advance, so we go to July 21st through 26th of 2020. We, of course, are talking about Kansas Fest. Kansas Fest is the Apple II event held in Kansas City, Missouri. It's at Rockhurst University. It's basically summer camp for Apple II geeks. Cool events, several days. It will be hot, but the dorms are air conditioned, so you will survive. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of Apple II geeks sounds like a good idea to you, and really it's not a bad idea, then I recommend you check out Kansas Fest. There'll probably be, I'm not sure when, it might be another month or two, but before long they'll be starting to register people, and once they start, registration doesn't always stay open very long. So if you think you might be interested, then you want to check out kansasfest.org and maybe keep an eye on it. All right, moving on to the big event of the year, the massive event, the awesomest thing going on this year for the CoCo world, other than, the CoCo Fest Challenge. No, really. The big event for the year coming up October 30th through November 1st, coming to Springfield, Ohio. We're, of course, talking about Tandy Assembly. This will be the mecca for people who like Tandys, whether you like Tandys with Zilog processors, Tandys with Motorola processors, Tandys with both Motorola and Zilog processors like Pete Satinsky likes,
right.
Or Tandys with Intel processors, Tandys with tiny little processors and tiny little calculator keyboards. Whatever you got, as long as it came out of Fort Worth, we would love to have you come and visit with us in Springfield, Ohio. Just come and be part of the show. We'll have some talks, speakers. We'll have other presenters. We'll have people checking out exhibits. It'll be really cool. If you've never done anything like this, if you've never gone to a vintage computing event, do not be afraid. It's a cool little place in Ohio, friendly group of people, and a great way. If you're thinking you might go somewhere and then be surrounded by nothing but PDP-11 geeks or Commodore people, or Atari people, whatever. No, this is all Tandy people. You will enjoy it. Again, that is Tandy Assembly coming up. It is over the weekend of Halloween. If you have small children in your life, that might be an issue for you, but realistically, the children will get over it if you're gone. No, seriously.
Bring them along. You can trick or treat in Springfield, Ohio.
Oh, that's very good.
And I'm sure more than one of us will probably have some candy on our tables too.
Yeah. And as you browse the exhibit hall, you might think half the people are in costume. You never know. They might be wearing their Doctor Who costumes or whatever else. So you might not even know.
And we won't be in a white van.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I think that probably covers, or at least does the justice to the events coming up this year.
I wanted to add one more thing, John.
Okay, go ahead.
We are now selling T-shirts on the Tandy Assembly website. T-shirts and hoodies and hats. Maybe if you can't come to Tandy Assembly, a piece of it can come to you. So check out tandyassembly.com and get
very handsome T-shirts, even a handsome trucker-style hat. Very good.
That's right.
Cool. Well, with that, why don't we call our announcements section to a halt and take another little break, and then we'll be back with some news.
Your color computer has always had the power, but never the software. Until now. 4-Star Software presents a product unlike any other. PenPal. PenPal integrates the 5 most used applications into one easy program, simple enough to learn in a single day. You get Write for word processing, Calc, a powerful 255 by 255 spreadsheet. Database includes advanced index searchability. Graphit, create presentation quality color graphics. Telecom, connect and transfer files with remote systems. PenPal's modules interface with each other to form a truly integrated package, unlike any you've experienced. PenPal is not just a collection of separate programs like others offer. All 5 of PenPal's modules use common formats and commands. There are no complicated key combinations to remember, and the online help function is always available. Everything is displayed on a high-resolution 51 by 24 screen. We invite you to compare PenPal's list of outstanding features with any other software currently on the market for any computer. PenPal is available at the introductory price of just $69.95 US and $89.95 Canadian. PenPal is shipped in an attractive binder set with reference and tutorial manuals. A 64K CoCo 1 or 2 with at least 1 disk drive is required. PenPal, the intelligent choice. From 4-Star Software, Streetsville, Ontario.
Okay, CoCo Cruisers. Now it's time for this section we know is why you tuned in. Now it's time for the news.
All right. We've got a lot of good ones here this month, if I do say so myself. So we'll start off with CoCo converted games for the Tandy Dragon by Per Surratt. He converted a game for the CoCo. I guess it had a problem running on the 6309. He worked with L. Curtis Boyle to get this thing going on the Dragon, and he's made it available. The links are in the story when you follow the link.
Yep. Very cool stuff. It's good to see some cooperation with our Dragon friends and get some software out farther spread. Very cool.
Yeah, good work, Per. Thanks. All right, our next one is the hilarious reason why the F-22 can't be hacked. And this is from We Are the Mighty. This is a good story. Well, to boil it down, they're using MS-DOS, which doesn't have any kind of networking capability.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better description. In the article, it makes the assertion that no one in China knows how to program these old machines or something. I think that would not be a good thing to rely on.
No.
I mean, especially when there's some guys like us in your backyard that might know how to program them. There's probably a few people, if not in China, around the world that know how to do it. So anyway, but it's still kind of funny to think that these advanced combat aircraft or whatever are running what is basically considered seriously out-of-date technology.
All right, our next link is from Chet Simpson, Digger 3 Sneak Peek. And this is very cool. Chet's been working on Digger 3. It looks great. You can if you follow this link, you can see a video of what he's done, his demo, and it's looking really sweet.
Yeah, definitely Well, of course, we all know, or those of us who've been around for any length of time know that Chad, of course, is a very talented programmer. And he's got a good eye for games, too, so which is a somewhat different skill than programming. And I don't know if he's working with an artist or if he's actually the artist himself on this. I know some of his projects involves another person doing some of the artwork. Whichever way it's going, the artwork looks really good, and it's like some people are saying Amiga quality artwork. Certainly the stills are as good as you'd see on an Amiga or whatever. I don't know. I'm sure I don't want to make the Amiga guys mad because those guys are angry. But it does look really good. Hopefully it's going to be a real big release this year.
Yeah.
When I saw that demo, I thought he had an Amiga underneath the table,
All right, this next one is from Hacker News. Ask Hacker News, do you still code in BASIC? And this is kind of an interesting thread where people put their 2 cents in about programming in BASIC, and it's definitely interesting reading.
Yeah, I mean, these kind of things pop up from once in a while. Basically, it's when the normies figure out that people like us are out here doing kind of these weird hobbies or whatever. Our hobby's not any weirder than people that knit sweaters for turtles or whatever. There's other stuff out there. If you came across somebody knitting a sweater for a turtle, you'd kind of want to know what was going on too. So you can understand why they're curious. But anyway, I just figured some people might enjoy reading some of that.
Yeah, fun to read. Okay, our next one is from friend of the show, Jim Gary. It's Swell Foop Update. And Swell Foop is a game he's been porting to the MC10. Like all of Jim's ports, they're really good. There's a video of the game, and it looks interesting.
Yeah, it looks cool. All of Jim's stuff looks worthwhile. I don't know, I feel like maybe, was it last month that we almost shorted him? We didn't have too many things from Jim. I don't know if he just wasn't doing a lot of stuff himself or what, or if we just somehow missed it. But trying to correct that this time.
Down for the holidays, I guess.
Yeah. So he's got some new updates and a few just brand new. He does that both. He does videos for new releases, and then sometimes he'll go through and he'll revamp something older and do a video. So we've got a few of both of those in this month's announcements.
Jim's created a huge library for the MC10, so
no kidding.
No complaints about shortage of games for the MC10. All right, we have another one from Walter Zambotti. The latest version of OVCC 1.2 is available for download for Windows 10 64-bit, Linux 64-bit, and OS 10 for Macs. So OVCC is the emulator that it's a color computer emulator that will run. So if you're looking for a color computer emulator that'll run on Windows, Linux, or Mac, this is one to check out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good to, I was a little worried a couple of months back that Walter might give up after he had done he was working on a feature that didn't work out very well for him. We covered that. So it looks like he's still doing some work, and I think some of his work that's in this release also got picked up for the guys still doing the Windows version of VCC, still doing some updates, and picked up some of his work there too. The VCC it's just not going to die. Some people love it. I don't get it. I don't see why people like that one so much. I mean, I know they say that the user interface is so much better than, say, MAME or whatever. I say whatever your interface, at some point you had to learn that too, whatever you like. But it's okay that more than one thing exists and people want to use them. And it's great that if people are going to use this emulator, it's great to see both that it's continuing to get some updates, getting, let's say, some improvements in accuracy, shall we say, as well as Walter's effort here to get it on more than just Windows, speaking as someone who doesn't use Windows at all. So,
yeah, same here. So good to see it, and that's no easy feat to get that to run multi-platform like that.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, thanks, Walter.
The next news item is general discussion on using tiled map converter for the Color Computer 3 by Chet Simpson. This is a YouTube video where Chet is walking through his tiled map converter for his game. I think he's demonstrating how he used it for Digger 3. And it looks to be a pretty extensive video. Around about an hour long or so, right?
Yeah, it's pretty long. I think this tiled, I don't know how it's pronounced, but I think it's kind of a generic tool, but he's showing how it can be used to do CoCo games. I didn't watch all the video, to be honest, but some of it had kind of a conversational aspect to it. He might have actually just recorded him talking to someone, like over Zoom or something like that. Anyway, a lot of good stuff there. If you want to do tile style of graphics and animation, using that kind of map converter is probably a good tool to have under your belt. So definitely check it out. Like I said, it'll take an hour of your time, but I think it'll be worth it for you.
That's pretty fascinating. I watched most of it, especially for someone uninitiated like me in color computer gaming. So yeah, I liked it.
Cool.
Yeah. Good job, Chet. All right, the next news item is Shanghai on my GitHub and he gives the URL to his GitHub account. This is Rick Adams. Rick has recovered his source code for his original game, Shanghai. As we all know, Rick came back to the community after years of being away. Rick was one of the back-in-the-day programmers for Tandy, wrote Shanghai as well as some other games, and he is sharing his source code with the world. This is a really cool thing on his part.
Yeah, that's kind of cool to see that. And it depends on what you're into. Some people really seem to be into Shanghai and some people are really into reading the code and learning from it or making improvement. It's always good to have these available and get that glimpse into the mindset of the past or whatever. Plus, it's available there as just a tool for people who just want to learn how to do some of that stuff. It's just really cool.
Yeah, very good. All right. The next item is Batalha No Mar. It actually is a game that our good friend of the show, Jim Gary, ported over from the CP400 color computer, or 16K color computer. I believe this was it a Spanish or a Brazilian computer, John?
Was it the CP400?
Yeah,
that's the Brazilian. One of the Brazilian.
Yeah, Brazilian. That's right. Yeah. And it looks like I was looking it up. I think it means I see battleship, and Mar is I think sea, so it has something to do with battleship game.
Yeah, so who knows? But it's cool, and like I say, it touches on the expanded CoCo world. Definitely good to see that. I don't know. I've been really disappointed that you see in the CoCo Facebook group. I've seen it a couple of times now where somebody will show up and say, "Hey, I found this article about this bizarre Brazilian machine, the CP400, and it sounds kind of like a CoCo, but I've never heard of it." And it's like, my Lord, we've talked about this many times on the show that we had these out there, but I don't know. Sometimes it's just like you just can't make people learn, I guess. Anyway, it's cool to see that connection there. Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Very cool game. All right, the next news item is Hello World in 6809 by Trey Tomes. This is actually a very nice, concise article. I was really impressed by how it was written. Trey goes through and explains in this article a very simple assembly language, 6809 assembly language, Hello World program, annotates it very well, has comments, has commentary. Just a well-done small article, easy to digest.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. It's well written.
Very cool. Hopefully he'll be part of our CoCoVest challenge.
All right, the next news item is CoCo Games for the 21st Century by Diego Barizo. Very cool style. Diego's website is themed like a CoCo 3 with the fonts and everything, so finding this article is pretty cool the way that he's laid it out. Appears to touch on how newer games written for the CoCo more recently maybe lack some things that some simple games had back in the day.
It's kind of an opinion piece, and with suggestions for people that want to polish their games or whatever, that want to go a little farther than just throwing something over the wall and say, "Here, play with this." My only concern is if it sets a standard, if it makes somebody think that the standard is too high for them to be able to do stuff. I'm not saying that's the intent. I'm just saying if that is the effect, I'd be concerned about that. But it's cool to throw out some suggestions and say, here, why don't you try to do this, or this is kind of a level of expectation we'd like to see, whatever. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think somebody made the comment, and I would agree with it. You have to take it in the spirit it was intended.
Right,
It's kind of a wish list of things, and they're not bad things. I mean, you look at them more as it'd be really cool if you had these things in your games.
Right. You have to be careful about writing opinion pieces these days.
Yeah. Yeah. But like I say, right. I want to be encouraging and whatever, and if anything, sometimes been criticized for saying for taking things that are not good enough or not up to par, and like putting games on ROM packs that don't deserve to be on ROM packs or whatever. So maybe I'm the guy who's giving out participation trophies. Maybe that's the implication. I wouldn't normally describe myself that way, but people have their own opinions. You can't help what the turkeys do.
I think it comes down to the old saying, right? It's your thing. Do what you want to do.
Exactly.
All right. The next news item is The Saga of Armatron Continues by Luciano Scharf. John, when I click on this, I don't see anything. It looks like there's a broken link or something on Facebook.
I got the same thing.
It's in the Club Color Brazil Facebook group. That's the Brazilian group. Basically, he's got a video where it sounds like Luciano and his son wrote it, of course, in Portuguese. He's got a translation too hard to make out. But anyway, I think if you've ever seen, there were some articles from back in the day describing ways to hook up the old Armatron toy robot arm to a computer, which it's really not designed to be controlled by a computer. So you kind of have to improvise a mechanical interface to control. It looks like Luciano and his son are doing this, and there's a video of the toy going through its paces or whatever. Pretty cool.
Cool. Is that being controlled by a color computer?
That is my impression.
Okay, very good.
CP400 maybe. So we mentioned Trey as Tomes, or maybe it's Tomez, or I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Trey, send us some feedback telling us how to pronounce your name. And so so we already mentioned he did a Hello World at 6809 in the previous section. Now he's got a couple here on doing a roguelike in 6809 assembly. Now, so for those of you who aren't aware, and I'm pretty sure you could figure this out, but a roguelike refers to a game that is similar in overall appearance and gameplay to Rogue. Spoiler alert, right? Roguelike games are games that are like Rogue. And so he's working through some of the issues involved and working out how to do some of that or whatever. And again, it's a blog with some discussion or whatever. Some related to 6809 assembly language programming. Gets into some talking about palettes and such. It's pretty cool, pretty good writing. So check it out. I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you, Trey.
This is so unfair. I really want a floppy disk drive for my color computer, but $270 is simply unaffordable.
That's understandable, but have you heard of the Undisk?
Undisk? I don't understand.
Undisk is uncomplicated. It's software that utilizes unused memory in your color computer. You can save and load programs with Undisk, and it's available for the unbelievable price of just $49.95.
That is unbelievable.
Unquestionably. It's easy to load and easy to use for the uninitiated. And since it stores everything in unused memory, the speed of Undisk is unmatched.
The possibilities seem unlimited.
Undoubtedly. Undisk is much faster than a cassette and allows you to unleash your color computer's full potential without being unaffordable.
Uncanny.
The Undisk from Dr. Preble's Programs.
Don't miss the all-new $1 million production of Falsoff's Rainbow on Ice. See in person world and Olympic champion Katarina Witt. From Rainbow Magazine, CoCo Cat, with the award-winning Falsoft Ice Dancers. See Falsoft's all-new Rainbow on Ice at family prices.
Chicago Stadium, February 12th through 26th. Call 200-555-6809.
All right, moving on. So this one is, of course, another Jim Geary creation. And this, of course, is called Goblin. It says, a type-in game from Compute, ported to TRS-80 MC-10 from the Commodore VIC-20. Goblin, Compute Magazine, July 1983, Dan Goff. And, of course, MC-10 edits by Jim Geary. So, like I said, it looks about par for the course in terms of Jim Geary's style of games, some text and some low-res graphics. But, pretty, and of course, written in BASIC. Pretty cool. And another Jim Geary creation. Jim is back in the swing of things for sure. Good to see that. Thank you, Jim. All right. Let's see. We have the announcement of CoCo 123. That, of course, is the Glenside Color Computer Club newsletter. CoCo 123, Volume 39, Number 3. That was released on the 27th of December. From, of course, the new newsletter editor is, of course, Steve Strobridge. Took over from John Mark Mobley, freeing John Mark up to be a VP of the club. So that's cool. It's distributed now as a PDF. Got pictures, some articles, some discussion of club happenings. Check it out, especially if you're at all interested in the CoCo Fest and the club that helps to keep it going. Then you may want to take a look. Good stuff. Thanks, Steve. All right, now here's a neat one. This is a YouTube video. It comes from Matt Sarnoff. Now, you might recognize the Matt Sarnoff's name. So years ago, did a bunch of videos where he built a homebrew 6809 based machine. There's a lot of videos that he posted related to that. So, again, you might be familiar with him. But in this case, he is building a new 8-bit style home computer, but this one is based on the Atmel AVR AT-Mega 1284. It's basically the same processor that's used in the Arduino, but he's got it built up into something that's kind of reminiscent of an old-style home computer. Composite video out. It's got a little keyboard. It's something better than a chiclet, maybe not a full travel keyboard. One little oddball thing, there's no space bar. He's got one little key off to the right of the P above the inner key that's used for spaces. But anyway, it's just a little 8-bit computer. I did enjoy the video. There's some discussion of NTSC artifacting that I thought was worth, if you want to understand it, if you don't want to just believe it's some sort of magic ghost inside of a TV that makes color appear where none was sent or whatever, as some people seem to think. You might check that out. Of course, you might check out the video I did on NTSC artifact colors as well, but I digress. Anyway, I don't know if this Amethyst thing is going to go anywhere. We occasionally see these kind of little computers pop up, little hobby computers, and sometimes they get a following. Some quite often they don't. This one seemed like it's nicely put together, so maybe it's got a little better chance than most. We'll see. Your mileage very, very. Check out the video. See if you enjoy it. Take a look.
It's a pretty cool project. This has the Gerbers available, right?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it probably does.
I think it does. So you could build your own, and it's probably like a PS2 keyboard interface. So you can put any keyboard you want on it. It's really cool. It's not a CoCo, but it's sure has a lot in common with one.
Yeah, well, certainly spiritually it seems similar. Well, I think we're all looking for that at some level. We all circle different drains trying to find it. Pretty cool. All right, anyway, moving on. This post is from Lee Patterson. I haven't heard that much out of Lee for a while. But this is our bouncy ball guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was good to hear something from him again.
Yeah, definitely cool. So he says more text mode video game fun, memory, aka concentration, for high-res text mode on the CoCo 3. Apparently also has a cross-compiling on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So if you're looking for text mode games for the CoCo 3, especially if you're looking for something you can play either on your CoCo 3 or your Linux box, and then who doesn't want that?
Exactly.
No, sorry, I'm not making fun, but it's just cool, just having a little laugh. But good to see you, Lee. Glad to see you're contributing to the group again, and very cool. Looks like he's got a website set up with some discussion. Oh yeah, so you may want to check out his website, and oh yeah, a lot of detail there. Looks good.
Yeah. Multi-platform is great. I love to take my vices with me.
No. All right. Now here's one a little bit odd from Richard Kelly. Richard, he's kind of randomly pops up with some software releases every now and then. They're usually fun. Check them out. So this one, even he says this is a weird one. He's got the English to Alien Troll utility, also known as the English to Alien Translation utility. You type in a phrase, and the computer translates the text into an odd alien language that consists of various squeaks. Why does this exist? Well, there's no short, sweet explanation for it, but it has something to do with a teleplay I'm writing. So I'm providing it to anyone who's curious. So I didn't know Richard was someone who writes teleplays. That's something I should file away. It might explain. I have a feeling in the future that's going to explain something. Very cool. Looks like a fun toy. You might want to play with it if you're bored with playing with Eliza. You might want to try the Alien Troll utility. Check it out. Could be fun.
All right. Our next news article is there will be a run of MIDI packs done for the Tandy Color computer. Brian Schubring posted that, a.k.a. the Music Man. And then he followed by there was a MIDI pack update, y'all. This redo finally has pricing info. Unfortunately, this link doesn't work for me, so I don't know the current pricing unless you know, John, on these packs.
There's this is I guess this is on Brian's homepage. So maybe you guys aren't friends. Who knows? Anyway, there's a complete unit, $60, kit option, $45. Bare board, $5. Yeah, so that feeds into our proposed host discussion topic. So maybe we'll keep that one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So anyway, so not too bad on prices.
No, and I think Jim Brain is doing the work on this.
Yeah, so Jim Brain, who seems to be the go-to for somebody who pops up with an idea and wants to have it made in the community, whether or not they get credit, whether or not they take credit for their own creations. Jim seems to be the person who helps produce these things, and he's helping Brian with his MIDI pack, which of course is a repro of, well, I guess sometime in the 90s, Brian had helped the Glenside Club do a run of these boards, and those boards, of course, were clones of the original boards from Rutherford Research.
Oh wow!
They're not too complicated. The hardware inside is basically a 6850 Motorola 6850 ACIA is what Motorola called them. It's basically just a UART. Locked into the speed of what MIDI uses for its serial port transfer, and then of course it has the MIDI ports welded to it, along with the opto isolation or whatever that's used for MIDI. So anyway, it's kind of a specially configured serial port, or in this case, it's got 3 ports because MIDI has the concept of having in and out and through on different ports. Not really sure why, but that's what they do. And so it's basically it It's just the hardware for communicating MIDI. It's not a sound, doesn't make any noise, whatever. But if you have software to run on the CoCo that can control a MIDI synthesizer by sending MIDI control information over to such a port, well, this is what you need to do. Well, theoretically, you could receive such information from another controller coming into the CoCo to then be synthesized or recorded or whatever. So if that appeals to you, if you're doing MIDI music, if you have the requisite hardware other than the pack for your CoCo, then this should be you should be calling Brian and seeing what you can get.
Yeah, it's nice to have this available again for the community.
Yep, I've got one of the 90s era cards somewhere in my pile. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Haven't had much use for mine, but I'm not really a MIDI guy.
I bought one of Jason's runs from a couple years back in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
There was a run a couple of years ago, too.
Yeah.
There's a few options floating out there.
I think even that was still basically a clone of the same design.
All right. Our next news article is, when does a system become retro? This was posted from Edge of Portal at Atari Age. And it's kind of cool. They basically asking a question there, and I think someone replied 20 years. It's a good question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one we keep having. It comes up from time to time, and you have to reevaluate it from time to time.
You do.
And I was at my dentist last week, and somehow or another it came up, what my hobbies were or whatever. And so the dentist I'm seeing now is the son of the dentist I've been seeing, and so there's a little. My original dentist is roughly my age, so the son is roughly 20 or 25 years younger. Yeah. And so we're talking, and I tell him I'm into old computers or whatever, and he says, "Oh yeah, like Windows 98." So, no, a little before. So that started a little discussion. So yeah, well, I mean, for a long time, I mean, Windows 98, that was just too young to even consider for a retro person to even look at,
Right.
And then before long you turn around, and then nowadays retro can be, and then if you're talking about games, retro could be a Nintendo 64 or a PlayStation 1, or even a PlayStation 2. I've even seen some people say the PlayStation 3 is retro.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen that.
These things change with age, and it depends on who thinks. Retro is from Wreck-It Ralph. Remember, retro is old but cool. So not just being just old doesn't mean it's actually retro, in my opinion.
It has to be cool.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't think a Burroughs mainframe is cool?
I feel like the bare metal.
But I'm kind of weird. Yeah.
And it's actually funny this came up because this past weekend I built up an old P3 system, and I didn't really build a P3 for the sake of the actual P3, but I acquired two Voodoo 2 3D cards. I've always wanted to see those things work together, and I got it working. It was really awesome to see that. So it's just kind of my curiosity's sake. But those cards were from '98, so I mean, you figure that's over 20 years old now.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem old to me, like, after working on CoCos and machines like the 8-bitters, but, and you realize that that's getting up there.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
All right, our next news article is from a friend of the show, Jim Gary. Pardon my Hungarian, I'm going to try to pronounce this. Aho Lovag? Not sure if I'm pronouncing that. I probably really butchered that. But it means Hero Knight, and it's a first text adventures programmed in Hungarian, ported from the Commodore C16 to the MC10, and translated to English. So he had a couple things to do there. Not just the coding, but looks like the wording, too.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, yeah, that's
pretty cool. Save foreign language work, save anything for that C16 plus 4, that TED series of Commodores is already, it was practically stillborn in terms of love. So, it's good to have some representation of that too, I guess. Cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, that's another good one from Jim Gary. All right, our next article is from Michael Madianuk, and we actually interviewed him on episode 43, I believe.
Yes, we did.
And he posted a YouTube video. This is really cool, how it works in detail, the TRS-80/Craft Deluxe joystick. It's pretty much everything you need to know about this. It's got a teardown, circuit, and even 6809 assembly code.
Yeah. Yeah. More than any sane person wants to know. Enjoyable. He's pretty talented with his videos and good level of technical coverage. Pretty cool.
Now, I don't know if you noticed on BG, is it BG Electric or is it BG Micro, selling PC Junior versions of those joysticks for pretty cheap if you're wanting to pick some up.
Yeah, I did see that. You'd have to do some rewiring to make that work for a CoCo, or unless you just want the spare parts for your deluxe. But yeah, it'd be possible. No, not a big deal.
Yeah, definitely good for spare parts for the mechanical stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they're like $7-8.
Yeah, got the same DIN connector too, right?
No, I think the connector's different.
It's not a DIN on the Junior?
I don't think so. No,
they're a little
PC
different.
Junior.
Oh, I thought it was. So I guess the Tandy 1000. So that was the difference with the Tandy 1000. It actually had the 6-pin DIN.
Yeah.
Okay. Just learned something new there.
Everyone knows that if you want to add a hard drive to your color computer, you'll need separate floppy and hard drive controller packs. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it always will be.
Those days are over. Introducing the Eliminator, available from Frank Hogg Laboratory. The Eliminator kit includes Bruce Eised's new interface, the Eliminator. It supports up to 4 floppy disk drives and up to 3 hard disk drives. Type ahead with no halt for both floppy and hard disk drives. Built with Western Digital's high-speed controller, it can complete a 1 megabyte transfer in just 37 seconds, more than twice as fast as other solutions. Auto boot OS 9 Level 1 or Level 2, from floppy or hard disk. The Eliminator also features 2 serial ports, 1 parallel port, and a socket for a real-time clock. Each Eliminator kit includes the Eliminator interface, ST506 cable set, a 3-foot 40-pin cable, hard drive enclosure with 60-watt power supply with fan, with complete instructions. Easy assembly in a single evening, or have us assemble it for you for just $60 more. The 20-megabyte Eliminator kit is just $7.99. 40 megabytes, just $8.99. 70 megabytes, just $12.99. Add a real-time clock, DB25 serial cable set, or parallel cable, each just an additional $30. Customer service, customer support, customer care. Frank Hogg Laboratory, Syracuse, New York. Turn any color computer with Extended Basic into a complete disk system with the new FD501 Color Thin Line Disk from Radio Shack. Store over 156K of data, write your own disk programs, or use ready-to-run software. The disk operating system is built into the program pack cartridge that connects the disk drive to your color computer, and the FD501 has room to add a second drive, providing an additional 156K of storage. This month only, purchase a 2-drive FD501 Color Thin Line Disk System for just $359.95. That's a 25% savings. Apply in-store for a CityLine revolving account and pay as low as $20 per month. The FD501 Thin Line Disk. Only from Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
All right, our next news article is from Jerry Stratton. This is really cool. When I saw this, I got a kick out of it because, we've all been here. I know I have anyhow. Rainbow Magazine Basic Program Pre-Flight Tool. So Jerry wrote a script that basically looks for errors when you're typing in programs from the Rainbow Magazine.
The same guy who'd done the earlier checker on the checksum R-check or something like that. We covered it last month or the month before, something like that. And so that's a pretty cool thing for some people to want to do. They want to still type in programs from Rainbow or whatever and even though you may want to do it, it's still a pain in the butt. It's good to have a tool that minimizes the pain.
Oh, yeah. Fat fingers.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Catch the typos, yeah.
Yeah. All right, our next news article is from Drygel at retrohacks.net. This was a neat blog. Dragon 32 64K RAM upgrade and mods. This is pretty extensive.
Yeah, really extensive. A lot of Dragon hardware coverage there. I didn't even really get a gist out of the whole thing. It's more like a long-term project coverage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So threw it in there. I think it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Check it out if you're a Dragon person or a CoCo person. Either way, I think it'd be entertaining.
Yeah, you can learn about the Dragon, the innards of it.
Yep. So we have one more Jim Gary game update and another classic fixed up from my original version. He's done an update of something called Zombies. So I included the Facebook MC10 group link because there he posted a WAV file link there. I'm not sure if he had it posted to the YouTube. Anyway, check it out. You can watch the video through the YouTube link if you follow the link in the show notes. One more piece from Jim Gary, one more game for your MC10, one more piece of entertainment to keep you doing your retro thing. Pretty good stuff. Good to see you work. You continue to work, Jim. All right, so moving on. We got another one from Rick Adams, Temple of Rom 2. So he's got a little video there that's coming along nicely. Color Computer 123. He's advising people on how to create custom levels. It's a bit tricky. He doesn't have a quote easy peasy level editor, but it can be done. So bigger maze, more monsters, treasures and portals, 2 new monsters, ghosts and skulls. I assume if you're a Temple of Rom person, that this is something very interesting. I know some people are really excited about that game from back in the day, and so you ought to be really excited that the creator is back on it. So check it out. Rick is sharing. Good info, Rick. Thank you. All right. A YouTube link to a VG6 converter. This is, of course, from Ed Snyder. So the Motorola 6847 different video modes have these names where you have the CG for the color graphics modes. You have the RG for the, quote, resolution graphics, so basically the monochrome graphics modes. You have SG for the semi-graphics modes, which are the pretty, low-res graphics to mix with text. So when the team here that's got the CoCo VGA, which is essentially an enhancement to the 6847 in some ways, or 6847 ride shotgun with it or whatever. I guess they've got these enhanced video modes that are VGA oriented, and I guess they've kind of taken the naming nomenclature a little bit, and so now they've got their VG mode, so VG6, that's one of their VGA modes, 128 by 96 in 16 colors, and which is probably what, 6K? Yeah, probably right. So VG6, a VGA 6K. That's about right. That's matches the nomenclature. Anyway, so he's written a tool. Looks like he's running on a Mac. Not sure if it only runs on the Mac or not, but it's a Mac OS tool. You can take pictures and do conversions into the VG6 data to load on your CoCo with CoCo VGA. Kind of neat. He's basically you give it a picture and it does some sample conversions and does a rendering to show you what it should look like on the CoCo. It looks like a competent tool. So if you are a CoCo VGA customer, you may want to take a look at and see what Ed has done for you. All right. So we have a a video from Henry Rietveld. Henry, he likes to throw out these little videos showing him doing stuff in his basement with his old computers. Sounds worse than it is, I guess. In this case, it's a pretty cool one. He's, I guess the software that comes with the XPad, that's the drawing tablet that comes with its own cartridge interface. Not the Koala Pad, but the nicer one. And I guess that predated, I'm sure it predated the CoCo 3. And yes. I guess the software that comes with it doesn't really work on the CoCo 3. And so Henry has written something up to bridge that gap, and his video demonstrates him using the XPad to write some graffiti on his CoCo 3 screen. So very cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so old it required 12 volts, so it was built for the CoCo.
Yeah, that's right. The XPad is the big reason to have a CoCo 1 or to use an MPI, other than, of course, running out of slots.
Yeah, cool to see that running on a 3.
So, cool. Very good. Thank you, Henry. All right, so the last two, you'd think they go together and they're kind of related, but they're actually not strictly speaking related. So it's I've got an email that I sent to the list. Someone else has started a thread asking about if there was a desend command. Basically, they had found the deload command, and they were looking for something to mate with it, so you could use deload on a CoCo 1 or 2. Infamously or whatever, there's never been real good support for deload. It's something I'd taken interest in over the years and had gathered information when I could find it, or when I stumbled across it, I would hold on to it or whatever. So basically, once the discussion started, I posted up a file that I'd acquired over the years. It appears to come from Microsoft, describing the format used for the deload command for the server sitting at the other end of the serial port connection from your CoCo, so that you could use deload, what the server at the other side would need to do. Not all the information I've gathered over the years, but it was a piece I thought was probably good enough if somebody was really interested. But anyway, I think deload would be cool if it was well supported. It's a nice thing. I think some people are looking for ways to easily upload code from a host computer to the CoCo, and I think deload could have been it for a lot of people. Might still could be it for a lot of people. Slightly less complicated than something like CoCo SDC or whatever, because CoCo SDC used to have to mess with the SD cards. DriveWire is going to be basically the same hardware. Setting up the DriveWire server is sometimes beyond people. Depends on which server you use and that sort of thing. In this case, with deload, all you really need is that cable. You need the cable, and then you need software running on your PC or whatever to serve it up. But for whatever reason, it's not really available or hasn't been. Anyway, somebody was looking for information. I had a little bit. I shared it. That's what this link is about. You would think that flows into the next link, which there's a video from Christopher Heiser, somebody that's kind of new to the group, or at least the name is new to me in the group. I'm not sure how long he's really been around, but anyway, he's apparently doing some research and digging into things and whatever, and so not only did he implement a deload server so that he could get code on his CoCo from a remote host, he took it a step further into coolness. His remote host is a Tandy Model 16 running Xenix.
There you go.
That is really cool. I so hope that Christopher is going to make it to Tandy Assembly, because who could possibly be more in the spirit of Tandy than somebody who writes a deload server that runs on the Model 16 running Xenix? I mean, what could be more? I mean, to be like having something to sync your PC 1 to your Tandy 1000 or something, right? I guess. Pretty cool. He kind of demos it. He's done a follow-up since then where he's polished it up, made the source available on GitHub. actually played a little bit. I had some issues, but there might be me, not the code. So anyway, I hope to get some enjoyment out of the future. There's a couple of languages I would like to learn that I've always been blocked by not really having a project to do in them. And things like, say, Ruby, for example, or Go or something like that. So I may actually take a swing at my own deload server written in a semi-exotic language at some point. Maybe not. We'll see. Maybe that could be my CoCo Fest challenge. That'd be cool. Anyway, I'm so glad to see somebody digging into deload and making servers available. I would love to see more people using this. So often we see people who show up and say, well, I want to write some code for the CoCo, but I don't want to use the CoCo itself. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I want to just download it from a PC, and somebody shows up and says, just use CoCo SDC. It's like, great. So to experiment with a little code to run on your $15 computer you picked up at the thrift store, you got to go off and buy your $70 add-on and maybe possibly with an MPI, and then you got to put SD cards in it, which means, pain in the butt or not, it does mean you have to take it out and connect it to the PC to get code on it. And you have to learn about disk images, and it's just one more thing. It'd be nice if all you had to do was plug in a serial port and say deload and be able to load code.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I'm excited. I hope you are too.
It's pretty fascinating. Do you know a lot about the history behind this? I mean, I'm not sure how it got stuck on the color computer other than that Microsoft developed the BASIC.
I don't really know. I'm not sure where it came from. I don't know if deload exists anywhere else. I really have no idea. I assume that, back in the early days that somebody had, at the very least another computer like a Model 1 or maybe something like a PDP-11 or a VAX or whatever, that were running these deload servers that people could develop code with and develop, early cartridges or, whatever. I assume that probably existed. And then at some point, we progressed enough that somehow that wasn't quite necessary. And yet most people at home did not have 2 or 3 computers, or there was no way really to distribute deload servers before the internet. And so somehow or another it just fell out of favor. And then because it wasn't being used, somebody decided that they would just kill the deload command in the CoCo 3, and then it just was gone, And so it's like this little piece of history that fell out of favor and nearly disappeared.
Well, there you go. We need to create the deload and the desend, and then bundle them with ADOS.
There you go. Well, all right. Well, that was the last news item for this month. So why don't we take another little break, and we'll be back with some feedback.
This month in CoCo History.
Welcome to This Month in CoCo History, where we explore events in the life of our favorite home computer. I'm Boise Pete, and this month we look back 36 years to the January 1984 edition of Color Computer Magazine. Page 10 of that issue featured an advertisement for the AMDisk 3 storage system for the color computer. This disk cartridge device is shown prominently next to a color computer with a cup of coffee strategically placed near the front of the keyboard. The AMDisk 3 was positioned as a 624 kilobyte storage device with 3-inch microfloppy disk cartridges. These cartridges were thicker than the 5.25-inch floppy disks that Tandy touted during that time, and quadrupled the 35-track storage of the mini-disc system sold by Radio Shack. The ad emphasizes that software vendors such as Frank Hogg Laboratories, Tomix Software, the Microworks, Prickly Pear Software, Spectrum Projects, and others have committed to the drive's future. A 2-disc system was priced at $499. The AMDisk 3 followed the Hitachi 3-inch microfloppy standard, and its drives were capable of both double-density and double-sided operation. The drives themselves were plug-and-play compatible with 5.25 drives. It's not clear just how much of an impact the AMDisk 3 had on CoCo users, but the prodigious amount of software on 5.25-inch media
all but ensured that this particular disk system played a minor role in the overall storage software choices for the color computer market.
And that's this month in CoCo History.
You know what's going on again at Radio Shack? That's right, honey. It's Tandy's Sweet System Sale. You get a Tandy Color Computer 3 with a dual FD501 disk drive system and your choice of either a DMP105 printer or a DCM212 modem for just $599. Most folks' $599 deal is not a system, honey.
These Apple disk drives are just $599.
That's not a system. Radio Shack is the place for a full system. Tandy's Sweet System Sale. Come and get it while it lasts, because it will not last long.
Love that CoCo from Tandy.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, now we're back with some feedback. So we have a couple items today. So we've got one from Michael Maidanyuk. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce it. Anyway, the Canadian guy, the one who does the videos. And I think he's responding maybe to the tone of the December episode. Some reflections on the past year and some strife in the community, that sort of stuff. So Michael says, just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate listening to the best CoCo podcast every month, and please don't let the trolls get you down. So I'm going to assume he means that we're the best CoCo podcast.
That was my interpretation.
Yeah. The way, don't let the trolls get us down. You know, I usually say turkeys, but that seems to irritate people. I don't know if people prefer being called trolls over turkeys. Who knows?
Anyway, both starts with a T.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. It's good to hear from you. Thank you for the pleasant thoughts. We're still here. We're still here for a while longer. So
we got a good 2020 ahead of us.
So moving on, let's see the other one. This is from Robert Allen Murphy. I think Robert is a little bit newer member of the overall community. I haven't seen him around that long. I think he may have found the community through a different path, so he might be even newer to the CoCo Crew. But he says, I'm listening to each one of these in order to catch up, so there are more downloads coming already. So that's when I announced that we had reached 120,000 lifetime downloads for the show. And that's documentable. I think it's probably higher than that, but for whatever reason, there's been cases where we've lost evidence of some downloads in the past. Not a huge amount, but some. Anyway, as part of the announcement that we could document 120,000 lifetime downloads, so he says, so there's downloads coming already. So good to know, Robert. It is fun to look at the to look at the statistics and see every time I update them, there's still even at the oldest episodes, there's still always, you know, another 10 or 20 new downloads in the old episodes. So somebody found the podcast and started the back catalog or something. It's always cool to see that. So good.
Yeah. Thanks for the feedback.
All right. Well, that's all we've got feedback-wise. So why don't we take another little break, and we'll be back with some more of the show.
Hi, y'all. This is Patsy Baker, and you're listening to the Country Biscuit Hour right here on KNOX. And we're delighted to have special guests in the studio with us today, the Pikeville Mountain Boys. Remember, if you want your biscuits to always rise and surprise, you need to start with the finest flour, and that means Nettles Country Biscuit Flour. Nettles puts in all the fussing for you, so your biscuits always turn out just right. That's Nettles Country Biscuit Flour. And now, a KNOX exclusive, the Pikeville Mountain Boys.
You ready, boys? Let's go. When I was just a youngin' back in 1983, my daddy took me by the hand and he said these words to me. Computers are the future, son, and I want you to be like me and be a Tandy man, Tandy man, Tandy man, Tandy man. Woo! store just what I pleased. I was using my assembler when it first occurred to me. I was a tandy man, tandy man, tandy man, tandy man. Grown, I took a wife and we're happy as we could be. When my boy was born, he cut his teeth on his very own CoCo 3. And just like my daddy done, he was born to be like me, to be a tandy man, tandy man, tandy man, tandy man.
I just want to thank Patsy, and I want to thank the Country Biscuit Hour for having us.
I was always born to be a tandy man, tandy man, tandy man, tandy man.
Okay, CoCo Cruisers, welcome back. We've got a little host discussion. Down to just three of us, but I think it'll still be good. It's me, John Linville. We got Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
Hello, John.
And Mike Rowan is with us. Hello, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
And our topic, so we were talking about, we mentioned earlier in our news segment that the MIDI cartridges, the new run is going to be available in assembled form and in kit form and even in bare circuit board. And so we thought we'd kind of discuss in a general sense how we feel about these options, not specifically for the MIDI card, but just in a general sense was if somebody shows up with a new product for the CoCo, which option do you prefer? What do you tend to like? And it probably depends, it probably differs depending on the exact type of item. And maybe it depends on your mood or how you're feeling that month or whatever. I know sometimes I like to solder, sometimes I just don't want to mess with things. But I do know it differs a bit when I see something offered as a kit that's all through-hole components. I generally consider that to be something I could knock out pretty quickly. Whereas when you offer something as a kit and it's got fine little surface mount pins, it's like that you have to do the drag solder or that you have to put in a oven or something. I'm still not brave enough to deal with those myself. And I know people that do it seem to think that that's the best way and it's great and easier and less error prone or whatever. And I say, sure, I believe you, it works for you, but I'm not going to do it yet. So I guess that's the topic of discussion. When you're offered something for the CoCo or something for, vintage-ish electronics, obviously it's not vintage if it's some new thing you're getting, but an accessory to go with your vintage electronics hobby, are you more enthusiastic or more interested or whatever when you can get it as a kit? Or do you just go for the pre-assembled one? Or do you go the other direction? If you can get a bare circuit board and a parts list, do you ever go for that?
I actually like when it's offered in different variations like that. I usually do pick the kit method. Call me crazy, but I enjoy soldering. I don't mind the smell of it and flux in the morning. No, all kidding aside. No, you learn from it too. The ones where you have to get your own parts, the components, it's a little more tricky. But even that, it's a learning curve. So
yeah.
So for me, it's not really a thing of being economical. I just prefer it that way.
Yeah, in fact, I'm not convinced you'll save that much. Certainly buying a bare circuit board, unless you just happen to already have all the parts, or if you just luck out, you're probably not going to save that much because, sure, resistors cost 3 cents a piece or whatever, but then when you buy 8 resistors and then you pay $15 to ship them,
That's the shipping.
You really didn't save anything versus if you could have got them as a kit, even if somebody was padding their costs a little bit and whoever's producing the kit. I produced some stuff for the community. I've made the Game Master cartridges available as kits for those who want to build them their own. I've made them available as, assembled Farfall cartridges for people that want to play Farfall. Or the people who don't mind paying for Farfall that also have the Game Master cartridge hardware available for whatever use. I'd like to see that market expand some, but so far. Some people have bought bare circuit boards. I don't really offer that to most people just because I don't really want to support it unless I know you're somebody who can build them. But I've offered each of those options. I'm not sure which one is really better. It probably depends on your own situation. As for my own preference or whatever, quite often it depends on the price, but quite often I'll just get something pre-assembled just because, if I'm buying it, I have to wait for it anyway. When it gets here, I want to use it. It just kind of depends. So,
yeah, you're anxious to get.
So, not too long ago, there was the all-in-one kind of upgrade for the Tandy 1000 HX and EX that became available. And when I ordered that one, I bought it pre-assembled so that I didn't have to do anything but install it. And I'm happy with that. But then, like I said, I also have recently been working on some kits where I bought bare circuit boards and then have spent, I don't know how many times going on to various electronic surplus providers and or eBay trying to get the parts that I want. Sometimes, you'd be surprised. And, sometimes not all switches are the same. They have different footprints, different sizes, whatever. Same thing for capacitors and other parts. And like I said, the whole resistors are cheap, but when you buy 10 of them and then have to pay $12 to have them shipped, it's not so cheap anymore. Yeah, I don't know. It can kind of go either way. I do enjoy building stuff, the smell of solder or whatever. There can be some accomplishments. Certainly when I built my Microchroma 68 kit, which was closer to being a bare circuit board. It was basically a bare circuit board with 7 or 8 major chips, but still lacking about 50 other parts that I had to source. I definitely felt accomplished when I built that, and I got a really cool computer that there's only a handful of them left in the world. I don't know. I guess I'm being really talkative. Mike, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the subject?
Well, yeah, I think it's cool to have the option as well. You sell your Game Master cartridge as a kit. That was fun to put together. There's a sense of accomplishment when you solder something together and it works. Let's see, I was trying to think of some of the other things that were kits. I know the CoCo SDC was available as a kit. Neil's built several of those.
Didn't you build that FD502 from Ian? Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say, I built that one as a kit, so that was fun. And sometimes you learn more about what's actually going on when because you're paying more attention to the board and what chips are on it. That was certainly the case with the Game Master cartridge. You can say, oh, okay, that's what's doing the decoding, and that's where the register is, and
right.
And you can see where the lines tie to the address lines and things like that. So, yeah, and I think it's cool that that this MIDI card is available as a kit. Again, some people just want the functionality; they'll order it assembled, and some people enjoy doing the assembly of it. So I think that's good in general. And most of the things for the color computer are pretty straightforward, especially through hole. I don't know that we've had a lot of surface mount things available as kits or any really, to be honest, on the for the CoCo. Again, it comes back to if you're supporting it. It's very hard once you start getting to that level. It's difficult to do product support for people that build kits because a million things could go wrong. There are people out there that are really lousy at soldering.
Right. Yeah, you see that. I haven't, like you say, we haven't seen that much in the CoCo community where anything's available as a kind of partial kit with a surface mount or whatever. But sometimes in other communities I've seen where you'll have a kit that's is mostly a bare circuit board, but will have 1 or 2 surface mount components pre-soldered.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's bare circuit board with, like I said, with some chips already on it. I think that's a pretty viable option if people wanted to go that way. Of course, I think the cool kids that moved on to surface mount soldering long ago, they're too cool to do a board that has both surface mount parts and through hole. So they just go all through. And so if they were going to offer one with the surface mount stuff already soldered, that would just be the whole board anyway. It could be a cool option. I think if that was economically viable or whatever, or practical, I think that could be helpful for some people. If you had some part that just was only available in surface mount stuff or something big, FPGA or major CPLD or something, you could maybe have a kit that already had that soldered down, but then you could, if it had a few 74 series or whatever chips strewn about the board, maybe that would make some sense.
Yeah, I think the more complex a project is, the less likely it is to be a kit.
Right. Yeah, most definitely true.
Yeah, and I've done some of those kits like you're talking about that have the pre-surface mount, and I've done some surface mount, but I'll tell you, every time I've done them, I just felt lucky that it worked.
All right.
You gotta upgrade your tool set if you're gonna start working with the surface mount stuff a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I did build a ISA compact flash IDE card that was mostly through-hole components, but the actual compact flash connector that went through the back port, that one connector, which is what 80 pin, 40 pin, it's I guess 80 pins. I don't know how many pins it is, but it's a bunch of pins on the back. That was that was a surface mount.
Wow.
And like you said, that was basically drag the soldering iron and the solder and hope that it all did right, and then go back with the jeweler's loop and see where the potential traces were, and then back with the continuity checker on this on the probes or whatever.
Can I ask, how did it turn out?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I've ever actually tried it. I have to throw my project work into a box and shove that in the garage before company comes. I think it ended up in one of those boxes.
What's funny is the most surface mount work I had to do was for a Nixie tube clock.
Oh, wow,
so best of both worlds there.
Yeah,
that's funny. Oh, well. Well, I think we probably have to leave this one unresolved. I'd say amongst us, we're happy to entertain options. If you want to offer kits, we'd love to see them offered with more options. I'm not sure we have any guidance on kit providers, if you should, which options you should prioritize. Well, prioritize the ones where it's all pre-assembled, unless for some reason you just can't get them pre-assembled. But that's just me, I guess. Anyway, we beat this one to death?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
all right. Well, there's our musings and our wisdom. I hope you get as much value out of it as what you paid for it. We'll just break here and enjoy the rest of the show.
Where's Jill?
She's really lonely. She's been spending hours on her Tandy 1000 again.
Do you think Dave will ever find his true love?
Not if he's been playing Quasar Commander on his CoCo all day.
We used to be lonely.
Until we met on TandysOnly.com.
TandysOnly.com is the new online dating site for folks who won't give up their Tandy computers.
You don't have to be lonely at TandysOnly.com.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, we've got a real treat for you today. We've got a guest join us for an interview, a name that is probably familiar to you. His name, of course, is Dale Puckett. Pretty well known back in the day for anyone using OS 9. One of the authors that you've seen on the shelves at the Radio Shack. Of course, Got the Basic 09, the official Basic 09 tour guide, and of course one of the authors, along with Peter Dibble, of Complete Rainbow Guide to OS 9 Level 2. Notoriously Volume 1, which sure we've all looked for Volume 2 on the shelves at some time or another and not found that. Maybe we'll get a feel for how that happened. Welcome, Dale. Also joining is, of course, Mr. Boise Pete. Hello, Boise.
Hello, gentlemen. Good to be here.
And Mr. Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike.
Hello, everybody, and welcome, Dale.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Thank you, John. And thank you, Boise.
Dale, why don't you start off a little bit with your own background? How did you get started in technology in general, computers? How you came across an OS 9, became an expert in OS 9, and got involved with writing books for Radio Shack and such, or for the Rainbow at least?
I guess my background in technology started when I was in high school, like freshman, sophomore. Mainly when I was sophomore, I got my amateur radio novice license in 1956, KN0HYD at that time, and had the novice license for a year, then went ahead and got the conditional license, which was same as the general, except you didn't have to travel 300 miles to take a test at the FCC office. You could take it from a local ham. I had that for years, and it was eventually converted to a general. Then in 2011, got my extra class. Also had a first class radio telephone operator's license since about 1960, I think, is when I studied and got that. That was a good deal. So that was the background that got me started in technology. And things went along and built up from there. I know it was sometime in the early 70s we built a TV set with a Heathkit, and then got into the computer end of the business. And I think it was 74, 75, more like 75. I think we went to one of the computer shows in Atlantic City. And my first computer was a Southwest Technical Product 6800. That's what got it all started. And from the perspective of 2020 coming up in a couple of days, you'd never believe it, because I thought I was splurging and buying way too much memory. And I bought 12K of memory. That's 12 kilobytes. So 12,000 bytes. And that was a lot back then, because there was no way to save a program. I didn't have a punch tape reader or anything like that. So I'd key in this binary code and then leave the computer on for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So that was kind of interesting. 12K memory-wise. Things have really changed, and things are changed for the better here as we can sit down and do things like this teleconference. And so that's how I got started in computers. Started getting interested in programming after I had the Southwest Technical Products thing, and did some basic programs, like the basic that was in the color computer. I really enjoyed assembly language programming a lot more, and did a couple of programs. And then by 1978-79, I was selected to go to the U.S. Navy's photojournalism school in Syracuse. Syracuse was the home of Frank Hogg. Met him on the air or somewhere real quick after we got to Syracuse, and sort of hung out there and met him. And he was sort of thinking about phasing into the computer industry, and was eventually a big player in the CoCo aftermarket thing, and had a lot of software and had some hardware and did a lot of things. So he took a couple of my programs and was selling them. I didn't make a lot of money or anything, but it was a lot of fun. So that started the whole process. At that time, he was interested in, getting reviews of some of his other programs and hardware. I was a writer. I was a journalist in the Coast Guard at the time, or photojournalist. So I wrote some reviews for a magazine called 6800 Journal, I think was the name of it. It came out of the Nashville area. That led then eventually to Frank introducing me to Lonnie and the gang there at Rainbow. We still stay in touch with Jim Reed on Facebook, chat with him every once in a while. Anyway, we got involved there, and he was encouraging me to write stuff about what he was doing at the time, and it was OS9. That's how that Kissable OS9 column started in Rainbow back in '84. That's pretty close anyway. We wrote that for forever, and it was a lot of fun. And from the book standpoint, back in the very early '80s, I think I ran into Ken Kaplan from Microware at a trade show down in Dallas, and sort of talked him into letting me do a book about Basic 09. And I kind of really liked that language. It was, one of the first ones that was a Basic that was structured like a real programming language, rather than a string of stuff like the normal Basic is. I really liked it, so we agreed and wrote that book. That was a pretty good deal, and that led to then the Kissable OS9 books with the CoCo later after CoCo adapted OS9. I enjoyed doing, some of the programming with Basic 09 and introducing people to some of the new concepts back then. My writing was always general in nature, and I relied on Peter Dibble, who I ran into at a trade show also, to provide the advanced, highly technical details of the operating system. That led to a good career for him, I think. He went on eventually there back in the 80s, late 80s or mid 80s, working for Microwave himself, and was one of the big players in the OS9 field for a lot of years there. It was a really good deal. Made a nice book to put the two together, the general intro and the details.
Going back to your early OS9 days, Dale, the Basic 09 Tour Guide, which was the first book that you wrote related to the OS9 operating system, and that was a pretty outstanding book. That really, as having read it probably 2 or 3 times in my life, cover to cover, I can tell you that was a really well-written book. You mentioned that you had ran into Ken Kaplan from Microware in Dallas at a trade show on that. Before that point, I don't recall that there was any published book about Basic 09 or OS9 in that category. Now, you published that, I believe, through Fallsoft, right?
No, I think Ken published that. I'm not sure who he had doing.
Wasn't Fallsoft published a book?
Microware published that themselves. No, they sold it through Radio Shack, though.
For the Basic 09 Tour Guide book, publishing it through Radio Shack, do you remember the process of that in terms of how difficult that was to get them to sign on to that book? Were they pretty amenable to it? Did you have to get Microware involved with it? Or how did that, from your memory, how did that publishing experience go through Radio Shack?
Actually, I didn't really get involved in the negotiations with Radio Shack or anything. The Microware published it themselves, and they were selling it for quite a while. And then I think they negotiated a deal to Radio Shack to go ahead and get it out there to the CoCo audience once they had OS9 on the CoCo. I think the book was out a year or so before it went into the Radio Shack system.
So you brought the OS9 Level 1 book in.
Yes, yep. We both did both books. We did the Level 1, and then when the Level 2 came out, Lonnie wanted to do the Level 2 book also, and we did that.
Both of those were also outstanding books as well. I remember going from just the OS9 Level 2 manual, which was probably, 3 or 4 inches or 5 inches thick, that was very tersely and technically written, to something more like the way that the Level 2 Rainbow Guide style was. It was much more of a friendlier type of book in terms of learning OS9, very reminiscent of the way the basic books for the CoCo were, using some cartoons like CoCo Cat and kind of bringing in these concepts in a very friendly way. What inspired you to do that, given the fact that Peter was probably more of the academically terse writer? How did you guys balance that out so that the book could be so well written and so amenable to just people that didn't really have a technical background?
We started, talked in the beginning, and I think both knew our strengths. I knew I couldn't tackle that heavy-duty academic stuff, yet I knew that there was a definitely market for people that needed that information drastically. And I've always believed that just, you can tell from the names, the Rainbow Column and the Rainbow Books, it was Kissable OS9. Right. And, of course, that's a play on the ages-old acronym there, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it simple, whatever you want to say for the last word there. And if you want to survive mentally, I think, especially in a complex business like computer programming, you better keep it simple or you're going to tie yourself in knots and not know what's going on. So that was the whole concept, and that was the way I wanted to approach the introduction to the book. And my whole goal from my standpoint in the first half of the book was to try to get it down to the basic human level, forget computers, forget programming, try to get it in a language that normal people could identify with. For the most part, it worked out pretty well. Peter jumped into some of the new technical features of the operating system and gave the details. Together, it made a good package, I think. That was how we approached it. We just sort of agreed what we wanted to do in the beginning, and he did his part, I did my part, and we didn't talk much in the middle. We sort of outlined it and knew how far we each was going to go and where the other one was going to pick it up. And we just, we're pretty much independent. We didn't have the teleconferencing then like we do now. Right. In fact, used to take the chapters and put them on a floppy disk and mail the floppy disk to Falsoft. And totally different than what we do now with cranking a blog out in 2 seconds if you want and having it published immediately. So, it was interesting experience.
There is no doubt that book contributed to the adoption of OS9 by a large amount of people, including young people, which I was one at the time when it came out in my teens, and really made the operating system, which could have been a lot mystical, and even some people today think it's too mystical or too technical, and really bring it into a place where it was a lot more accessible. Very good work. I always wanted to compliment you on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was the goal, was to make it accessible, like you said. And it was a fantastic operating system, and it still is, I guess. I know Microware went with embedded systems and did a lot of work that way that, took it out of the general public domain. But I know they it was a great operating system, and it was small and concise. It was like Unix, but it was not as verbose and long, and it was more compact. Could fit in the color computer and other small computers. So Microware did a tremendous job with that, and I think Peter played a big part in that development there for years.
Now, how long did it take you to write those books?
The first one, the Basic 09 Tour Guide, which I did the whole thing, that was probably a 6-month project, I think. I can't remember for sure, but I'd say about 6 months to get it all together. And we'd send it in a chapter at a time. With Falsoft, we'd send in a chapter at a time. So we just did it over a course of 6 months. Probably both of the books took 6 months in general to send them there, do any rewrites, send them back, do all, just the whole process.
I would go along with Boise and say they are fantastic books. And really, to the CoCo community, those books were the entry point to OS9 because you couldn't just pick up those big technical manuals and figure things out very easily.
They were pretty dense, the technical manuals, but they were very handy. And so it was just a matter of trying to break them down into English and present them in a flow that would allow people to sort of work into it easily, I think, is how it worked out. And, it was a part-time gig for me, too, at that time, because I was active duty in the Coast Guard. I was a chief warrant officer at the time. And so I was running the Public Information Assist team and traveling out to all the oil spills all around the country. So it was a pretty busy time. Enjoyable time, though, because we always got to go to the Rainbow Fest, and they were always a lot of fun. And it was always enjoyable to present things there.
What were some of the memories of Rainbow Fest that you have, Dale? Weren't you like a keynote speaker to one of them?
I think it was the last one. Princeton, maybe? I did do the keynote speaker there. I don't know how much I had to say that was of regard to the normal CoCo user, not the OS9 people, but it was kind of fun and kind of an honor. I really enjoyed doing I think there were 1 hour sessions that were more technical and were about OS9, period, and just introducing the live audience to OS9. Probably more than doing the keynote thing, but yes, I did do the keynote. That was in '89, and I think it was Princeton. And then I was supposed to write a book, a history book, but
right.
My background was more in OS9 and not too much in the rest of the CoCo world. And Lonnie and I never could agree on what the book was about, so we never got that together. So.
I'll just mention, I always loved the cover of this particular book, this colorful cover.
Oh, yes.
Shots. It was just so exciting to see that as a young OS9 enthusiast. It just was a vibrant way of seeing the material. So kudos to that as well.
Yeah. OS9 Level 2, that was fantastic. I mean, what a big advancement, it had made.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most fun things was that OS9 Level 2 book. Lonnie published it in Japan too, so I had one copy of Japanese edition of the book. Of course, I couldn't read it, but every time my name would come up, they'd have to do it in English. But there were a few other English words where they had to do it in English, but otherwise it was all in Japanese. So that was really exciting. I still got that book.
I was going to say, in terms of the Level 2 book, we kind of hinted at that, but, it says Volume 1. We never got a Volume 2, but was there a plan for a Volume 2? What would it have covered?
I'm not sure. I don't remember having a plan for a Volume 2.
That annoyed me when I started collecting. It's like, well, where's Level 2? I can't find Volume 2 of the Level 2 book.
Right.
I don't remember ever saying we were going to do a Level 2. I mean, a Volume 2, Level 2, Volume 2. You stumped me there. You got it.
Well, Dale, I have to say, reading from the forward here, at the very bottom it says, "I hope you enjoyed this first volume of our 2-volume set on OS9 Level 2." So apparently there was a second volume planned, but you may not remember. Yeah. Anyway,
I certainly don't remember.
I'm sure if you worked on Volume 2, we'd purchase it immediately.
Well, there you go.
Even today, yeah.
Put out a new one. We can get it on Lulu.
We'll start out bidding each other on the price, right?
While we're praising the books, I do remember, and as an early days of retro collecting, as a cocky, freshly minted new bachelor's degree a computer engineer, but who was still a little sheepish about admitting that I was interested in this old computer, because what kind of weird, silly people would be interested in an old computer? But I got a hold of the the Rainbow Guide to OS9, the Level 1 version, and reading through that, it was like, there's some really good information in here. There's some really neat stuff. It kind of legitimized the hobby for me. I know that wasn't really your intent, but maybe that's something you can take away and ponder on. That if maybe you ruined my life.
Oh, no. I wonder how many lives we ruined, right?
Yeah.
That's something else.
Pretty cool. So what did you do after these books? Did you go on to, you were in the Coast Guard. Did you continue with the Coast Guard for a long time? Did you move off into computer consulting or anything like that?
Well, several things. I've had basically 3 careers, I think. Before the Coast Guard, I was in broadcasting for a while, not a whole lot of years. And then after the first 4 in the Coast Guard, I came back into broadcasting, and I should tell that story because it's kind of interesting. I was making fairly good money. I was the operations manager at a station out in western Kansas, picture Garden City then, about 17,000, 18,000 people. Now it's around 50 or 60,000. But we had a 5,000 watt directional daytime AM and an FM. And so I was the operations manager, the morning man, and the program director, and the chief engineer, since I had the first class ticket. And so they should pay you a little bit to do all 3 jobs. And
sure.
I was generally happy. I wasn't very good at getting up in the morning for a morning show. I'm, now that I'm retired, I stay up till 12:30, 1:30, 2, or later in the, playing with the computers or doing something interesting. A gentleman or a kid actually came into the station for an interview. This was before I went back in the Coast Guard. Wanted to pay me to work on the station. At that point, I sort of solidified the process, and I said, no, this is not a career that's going to go anywhere if they're willing to pay me what people are paying me to do. So that's how I got back in the Coast Guard and then finished my career. I retired after 22 and a half years on February 1st of 1990. So I've been retired, so to speak, for 30 years almost. It will be next month. So it's unbelievable. But anyway, I was a photojournalist in the Coast Guard, picked up the writing, picked up the photography, wound up working within the Coast Guard, being sent to headquarters to set up the Coast Guard magazine. That was in the beginning of the Macintosh era, and set up a desktop publishing system. That got me started in computers again, pretty heavily. And so when I got out, sort of piddled around for 3 or 4 months, didn't do anything, and then I went to work and actually sold computers for a local Macintosh dealer. I sold 5 or 6 newspapers, a whole set of computers to do their desktop publishing or their publishing. So that was pretty neat. But I hated sales. I'm not a salesman and don't ever intend to be one. But it was a living, and then I got to go to Micro Tech as opposed to Microware, which was a newspaper software publishing place. They pulled me right in because of these books that we were talking about here, the Basic 09 Tour Guide, as a documentation writer. And I wrote 4 or 5 manuals for different newspaper publishing software packages over the next several years until the Kansas Capehurst, the retirement fund in Kansas, pulled the money out of Microtech, and they went bankrupt. And so I was back at the computer sales business for a little while. And then eventually another company up in Chicago bought what was left of Microtech and called it Freedom System Integrators. About 6 months to a year after they came online, I was invited to go over there and worked a lot of support and things like that. Eventually became the support manager, and then as they were winding down and getting ready to sell the company, wound up being the general manager of the place for a while. This took us till 2001, I guess. At that time, a company called BrainWorks bought Freedom System Integrators. They had a really hard-charging manager, fantastic guy that ran that company. And Freedom System Integrators was giving away the software, basically, almost. And when this guy took over, he wound up in big markets and selling it for a big price. So he was just a good salesman and a good forward thinker and knew what people needed. Drove everybody crazy, getting the product to the point where, it could sell into these big markets. And so I was there until I retired again. So I was at BrainWorks for 22 years. from 1994 to 2016. I went part-time in the middle of 2012 and worked 3 days a week after that. But my main job, main thing was programming classified web feeds. I would, all these newspapers would feed 15 or 20 different companies that would put their stuff on the web, and they all had a different format, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so I did the programming to write these web feeds. How it turned out, after a few years, I thought, this is crazy. I'm never going to be able to keep up with it, with all these different things. So I wrote a program that would basically write the program. And that was my big achievement as far as I'm concerned in programming. We used Perl, the Perl language. Basically how it worked, it would take an XML template of what the feed was supposed to come out like, what it was supposed to look like, and it would parse that with all the modules and code that I'd written. And you push it takes about 30 seconds to run, or 15 or less, and out comes the program, and you send it to the newspaper, and they're happy, and the vendor's happy, and we turned out hundreds of web feed applications like that would query the newspaper database and generate an XML feed that they could use to get their classified ads on the web. So that was fun.
I was really hoping you were going to tell me you used Basic 09 to write that program. No, I didn't, but I probably used some of the skills. Basic 09 I liked. I think the most fun I had with Basic 09 when I was doing the Kissable OS 9 columns and stuff was when Level 2 came out. I had never done any graphics programming or anything like that, and did that series of columns on putting together a drawing program. That was fun, and I hope a lot of people got interested in some of the power of the program through that column at that time. But that was one of the memorable columns as far as I was concerned back then. Many of us and many of our listeners enjoyed every one of those articles, or a whole lot of them at least. Definitely a good time.
I'd like to actually point out that Dale is a member of it's Ham Nation. It's a video podcast of ham radio enthusiasts. And Dale, you've been doing that for a number of years, right?
Yes, that's a whole other story. Comes from my love of broadcasting, I think, and photography. How we got into that, it was 2013, and I'd never been to Hamvention before. And I ran into Bob Heil, who everyone that's a ham probably knows Bob Heil, K9EID, in the hotel. And then I had my cameras. With your photojournalist, you carry 2 or 3 cameras around your neck, and they had a lot of activities going on. Ham Nation did at that time. And I was shooting photos and put together a whole bunch of photos and sent them in to him, which they used. He got interested and said, "Hey, why don't you come on and teach people how to shoot videos and how to do photography about their ham projects?" So that's how it started, with an interest in getting hams to do high-quality photography or video that they could send to Ham Nation, and then Ham Nation could broadcast it. And so it started there, and then I did some videos of my own occasionally, and then they sort of had me do a host a video segment and pick videos from users that would send them in and then put them on the air. So that's what we've been doing. It was really busy. We're on, when we first started, it was every week, and then it was every 2 weeks. And at this point, don't have a lot of user videos input, but usually have enough about every 3 weeks. So we get to do a gig about every 3 weeks, and maybe every month sometimes. So we did about a dozen segments last year. So it was pretty good. So we're still doing that.
Well, I've just got to ask the question, do you have any 6800 or 6809 systems now?
No, I don't. I wish I had kept my CoCo 3. that I had back there toward the end of the. I really do. I think I gave it to my niece, and it worked out well for her because she got interested in not computers as much, but used it to go into a career in journalism and stuff like that. But no, unfortunately, I don't. I have mainly Macintosh computers now.
So I just want to say how I appreciate your efforts in the OS9 writing that you've done and how much of an impact it made on me as a young person to kind of shape my career. And I know a lot of people listening to the podcast will feel the same way. So I really appreciate the work you've done. It affected a lot of people positively, especially the young guys like me that were coming up and learning computers in general. So thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you for the good words, and thank you all there for having me on. I'm not, I'm not sure how interested, the normal straight CoCo person is in the OS9 in my background, but it's been fun.
I think you're definitely right. I'm sure people, even people that may not be totally interested, will still understand the time taken. Definitely great having you, Dale. Appreciate you coming and spending some time with us. Thank you for the time and effort you put into the articles and stuff that inspired us back in the day. While I'm at it, thank you for your years of service to the country and the Coast Guard. Again, thank you for joining us. It's been great.
New from Bumblebee Software, it's ColorSpeak, the easy-to-use color computer voice synthesizer.
Greetings, everybody. I am a speech synthesizer.
The ColorSpeak voice synthesis cartridge works with all color computers, 4K through 64K, and all versions of BASIC. That's because ColorSpeak has its own internal 2K of RAM, and all of the software required is stored on its own onboard ROM. Just plug it into your color computer, power up, and begin using ColorSpeak. ColorSpeak features text-to-speech mode,
text-to-speech,
phoneme mode, inflection mode, and spelling mode. From BASIC, simply assign a string of text to the talk $sign variable and call the USR routine to speak it.
How are you?
ColorSpeak includes user manual, phoneme dictionary, cartridge pack, and demo tape. Just $169 from Bumblebee Software.
Happy New Year, and welcome back to Neil's Corner on episode 56 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. I hope all of you got some CoCo time in during the holidays. Luckily, I was able to, and I started a new project that hopefully I'll be able to give details on next month. Alright, for this month's segment, I've got a rarity to review. At least it's rare to me, as I've never heard of it before. This game is called Currillian Cruiser. This game was brought to my attention during the holidays from Mike. He always liked the ads for it in the Rainbow magazines. Oddly enough, I don't recall this one from back in the day. It slipped by me. Currillian Cruiser is an arcade-style game and was self-published by Glenn Califati in 1987. Kind of cool that back in the day you can self-publish a game. I guess you can do that now, but it'd be harder to be recognized. It requires a CoCo 1, 2, or 3, and a joystick. The object of the game is to guide your ship through different planets. What makes this game so unique is that there are so many different boards, and each board is different with a brand new challenge. For example, you start off in a meteor shower and have to dodge your way through it. As you make your way through the boards, information screens will come up with the objective of what to do on the upcoming screens. There are tons of glorious P-Mode 4 graphics in this game. It was written in a mix of BASIC and assembly language. This game runs at a very fast speed and offers some nice features. When you reach the main menu, there are different options, such as viewing the title screen, viewing the high scores. When starting the game, you can enter your name and save your progress as you clear through the different boards. This is a very great feature as this game is very difficult. You could spend a great amount of time just trying to clear one board, so being able to save your progress is a nice feature. There can be a total of 9 save games. The high score screen will hold up to 12 of the highest scores. The copy of the game I got from the Color Computer Archives I noticed is cracked, and it also has the added option to give yourself extra lives or start on any level. I don't believe this was in the original version. Nonetheless, it is a cool feature added to this very challenging game. One last thing interesting to note is when this game is played on a CoCo 3, it automatically adapts to that text format. I guess not too surprising since the game was coded in 1987, a year after the Color Computer 3 came out. If you are still curious about this game, there is a review of it in the 1988 February Rainbow magazine on page 132. You can download the copy I'm playing right now from the Color Computer Archives website. Just search for Currillian Cruiser. You can't miss it. Well, there you go. Another super fun game you can play on any of your CoCos. Until next month, happy CoCo gaming and retro forever.
After these messages,
We'll be right back.
Dino Wars. 65 million years ago, giant carnivorous beasts roamed the earth, fighting for territorial dominance. The only rule? Survive. Each player controls a rampaging dinosaur. If you aren't quick, you'll find yourself ruthlessly attacked by your opponent. You develop your maneuvering skills, then declare an all-out dino war on your opponent. Dino Wars requires a TRS-80 color computer with 2 joysticks, 16K of memory recommended, from Radio Shack.
Well, we've reached the end of episode 56 of the CoCo Crew Podcast. As usual, I'd like to thank our host John Linville for procuring all those news articles each month. Huge thanks to Mike Rowan for editing and creating super fun commercials. Thanks to Boise Pete, our CoCo historian. He remembers it, so you don't have to. Thanks goes out to Ron Klein, and we hope to see you back on here again soon. Big thanks to Dale Puckett for giving us some of your time to record an interview with you. I really wish I was able to attend that one, but I was stuck in a noisy airport. Last but not least, thanks goes out to all of you who listen and support our podcast each month. If you want to reach out to us, we appreciate your feedback. Well, until next month, happy CoCoing and retro forever.
It's a blast from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway? It's a blast from the past.